Hi, Soul Tribe, and thank you for joining this, whether you're joining us live or you're watching on the afterplay. And welcome to a new series, Awakening Insider, with Greg Doyle, Phil Rice, and myself. So tonight we're going to be talking about dreams, which is a really interesting topic. But before we get into that, I just want you guys to intro yourselves first, if you don't mind. Phil, I've got you on top of my screen if you want to start by just giving us a little intro.
Certainly. Well, thank you so much for having me here. And, the fact that, the three of us are going to be doing something together is quite special for me. I've been really looking forward to this. So thank you for setting this up, Solreta. And thank you to everyone in the chat who's watching us now and in the replay. My name is Phil Rice. I have a variety of things that I do, but something that, is very special to me is having adventures and taking the wisdom that the value that I discover on these adventures, whether it's lucid dreaming, out of body experiences, working with clients, and reading and developing myself. I love qigong and tai chi, and I'm also a hermetic Kabbalist. I'm very fond of the Franz Baden tradition of hermetic cultivation, and so I guess what I am is I'm an adventurer. And I'm a shaman of sorts, and I love working with people and helping them sort of transform their lives and helping them discover insight and values and exploring these topics for themselves. And also for myself, just bringing these some of these dense topics sort of and translating them for the the current populace, using relatable and I guess good language, current language, bringing it to the street. So that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that intro. And I can see the stream is a little bit choppy. So I'm not sure if you need to maybe drop the quality down on your end, Phil. And how about you, Greg? Welcome to the new show.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I know you guys so well now, and it amazes me that it's the first time we're all together, actually. You're right. You're quite right, Phil. This is the actual first time I think we've all been on together. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So look, it's wonderful. It feels very normal, and we've all come together through the same kind of interests, I think, and like Phil and yourself, Sol. I'm an adventurer as well, and felt kind of, to those who know my story, kind of thrust into it, not against my will, but kind of funny, thrust into the whole astral experience early on. Now that's 25 years ago or so, and but then looking back, like this theme, now I do energy healing and teach astral travel and lucid dreaming and stuff. But looking back, like when I was a kid, the lucid dream experience did have me very interested when I was like up to a teenager and stuff. So I think the topic today is something that's really close to all our hearts. And anyway, it's great to be here with you guys.
Oh, well, thank you both for joining me. And I guess with my background, I have, since as early as I can remember, which is probably about age 4, experience, whether it's like lucid dreams or beings and ETs and things like that I've interacted with, as well as always seeing auras. So a lot of you know that that's my background, and working in the mystical side of things and working in psychic readings and aura drawings and teaching how to see auras, but also my potions. So it's not a martini that I'm drinking at this before noon over here in Melbourne. It's actually the Vision Quest potion. So this is a perfect one for, for the dream side of things and getting us into the energetic alignment and vibe. So just to start out, just to drop in, and I'll pop this up. Let me just see. So we do have, this is the blue one here, the Vision Quest that I'm drinking. It is part of our bundle, as well as you can buy it separately. So I just want to drop that in here. And I do have consultations available. So all of my bookings are on masonjupiter.com. If you use the code word Jupiter, you can also save 10%. And we have Phil's Substack over here where you can come into for bookings. And we also have Greg's Astral Travel website as well. So you can also subscribe to these guys' newsletters, and you will see there's various different services. There's Reiki, Astral Travel meditation. And if you are a local, it's Brisbane, isn't it, Greg, where you are?
Yep.
You can actually go and check out the Pandora Star Light Therapy, which when I finally make it back up your way, I want to come and check out that. But you can book private sessions with Greg too. So just to get us sort of settled into not only the topic of dreams, but I really wanted to bring to the audience that you guys have this equipment. So everything we're talking about tonight, you guys have the faculties on a very physical and electrical and magnetic level to be able to work with all this stuff. So we can see here this little chart that I've got. We've got gamma waves at the top. And with this one, this is more where we go into deep states of healing. So if we're more tapping into that blueprint, that original, blueprint of the divine and how we're meant to be perfectly orchestrated, this helps us to also tap into sort of a deeper level of cosmic consciousness or that unity type energy. We can see we have beta waves next, which is our ordinary, normal, everyday waking world experience. So when we're doing sort of more menial tasks or having just, low-level basic things where we don't need as much brain function. And we all have, over the last couple of years experienced a lot of people walking around in beta. So it's sometimes also a little bit that lower frequency level. We also have alpha here as well. This is where we start to tap into meditation when we're hitting the alpha and the theta brainwaves. So meditation, healing, and also when we tap into sleep, which is where we're in this dream realm side of things, we're going to be tapping more into theta and even delta. And the next little one, which you guys might have seen on other shows, is brainwave synchronization. So this is a really important tool that you guys can use, whether it's hemisync or other binaural beats where you're playing different tones. This will automatically drop your brain into these deeper levels of synchronization as well. So right brain being connected to the universe, left brain being connected to logic. It just harmonizes and closes out the noise that the logic brain will sort of ramble and taps us into that universal creative absolute. So I'm just going to come to you now, Greg. What is it that first inspired you to start working with dreams?
Look, I tell you, when I was a kid, I did have a lot of lucid dreams, and you might have heard the story, but it was funny because as a kid, I had issues falling asleep. I didn't know how to fall asleep, so I would lie there awake for hours, and I would ask my friends. I still remember vividly asking my friends and even teachers and my parents, and a lot of my questions people didn't really take seriously because I thought Greg was a bit different. But I never knew how to fall asleep. I thought, I'm missing something here. So what I used to do is I lie there for hours. I'd have to get into a story. I'd have to make a story or think of music. And as you both know, and as Phil also was a musician, but I would think of music. I'd make up music in my head, and then when the music became real, I knew I was asleep. Or when the story became real, as in, it was like inside a movie, then I knew I'd fallen asleep. So that was when I realized I'd fallen asleep. So I would actually, looking back, I use a lot of these tools now to go lucid, but it was just instinctual back then. And I thought, look, I just remember being in dreams that I could control. And back then, as a traumatized young kid a little bit, I probably, I remember, look, I'll tell you one pivotal dream in my early teens. It sounds traumatic, but it is what it is. But I remember in this particular dream, I'll tell you quickly the subject matter. There was like a lovely scene of a grandfather and a grandchild fishing. And I'd been brought up a little bit living with my grandparents because of the situation at home. Anyway, it was a beautiful scene, and it was, beautiful brooks, a little stream gurgling by. They were fishing, beautiful day, and I knew I was dreaming. So I rock up to them both, and I just put my hand behind them and just quickly and sort of just gently kind of push them into the river. And it was quite a fast flowing, and they kind of drowned. And I remember I followed them inadvertently, and I started drowning myself. And I thought, hang on, this is my dream. I'm not going to drown. And I started to panic. I actually started to panic. Now, when I did finally wake up, it was like coming out of sleep paralysis. for the first time, I realized that I had some responsibility in dreams. Even as a young kid, I realized that dream figures weren't just what I could do with them. Funnily enough, that skill, the lucid dreaming skill, was taken away from me for some years after that. So that was what kind of this penny dropped. I thought, okay, when that comes back again, I realize that's actually something not to tamper with so lightly, in the best sense. But that was what got me into it. It was just such a cure. I never forget that dream. That was that when I realized this is actually important. This is not just messing around. There's actually dare I say it, there's some karmic things at play here. So in the best sense, it has to do with our story and our charge and our karmic load, if you like. So yeah, that was in a nutshell.
That's interesting how, it was just something spontaneous and your intuition guided you with that. I love that. And I think, that it would be by design. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something connected to do with that in your astrology, that's what you're here to awaken within the world. And yeah, I think that's in alignment with Awakening the Giant within your book too, talking about your experiences. I can see your internet sort of buffering in and out as well. Maybe it's the heat in all of our countries and states at the moment as well. I know for me, the dream state has changed a lot. I feel that when I was a child, it was something that I didn't want to go to sleep at night. I think because being so sensitive to the energies, I could feel them come in, or different beings that come in, especially as a child. The more that we are tapped into, having a fear or seeing energies that we don't know what they are, it sometimes creates that fear, and then that perpetuates more and more spiraling of fear. So I definitely enjoyed dreams a lot more as an adult. I've learned how to, I guess, battle things in the astral in dreams. And even the other night, actually, I had an experience in a dream that was 3 ETs. They were not positive ones. And there was sort of a stairwell. And I remember myself trying to get away from them, and then realized I was in dream state, or sort of in the astral. I woke up, and for some reason I looked down at my arm, and I don't know if you guys can see that. There's like a fingerprint sort of bruise mark just there. I don't know what it was, but I looked down and saw what looked to be a fingerprint on my arm. And this was after that experience with the 3 not so positive ETs that were in there. So some of these beings exist from an interdimensional point of view in more what we would say is like a lower astral state. And so they will kind of try to get in or interfere with your dreams. That's why it's really important to do protection. But at the same time, if you realize that you're having this kind of experience, it's good test, and it's good kind of like warrior strength building to be able to wake yourself up within that state, or to be able to, in my dreams, I always know that they can't touch me, or in terms of like, a big physical kind of harm. So I know I'm protected in that way. But yeah, it was just a really interesting experience the other day. Good reminder to do protection before bed too. That was probably something I'd forgotten to do that night. How about you, Phil?
Well, thank you. Yes. I remember having dreams as a kid, but then, there were other things in life, I guess, that sort of took my attention. And it wasn't until I started meditating sort of around 2014 that I started making space and exploring. I'd be waking up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't know why. And I was like, well, let's just get up and meditate. And then I would go back to bed maybe after about an hour, so maybe 4:30. And then, wow, I'd sort of done all the rejuvenation period of what the mind and the body needed to rejuvenate. And now it was like I was just suddenly thrust into this highly vivid, engaging kind of dream reality. It wasn't lucid to start with, but when I awoke, it was very easy for me to recall. And once I started writing it and stretching the recall muscle, it really just consistently nurtured, I guess, my curiosity for it and the value. Because I'm having these really interesting experiences. I'm like going, okay, how is this valuable? It's interesting, but what can I harvest from this experience? And once I sort of started reading and exploring the literature and talking to other people, it became quite clear to me that there's, lots of different types of dreams. You can be at various levels of consciousness inside a dream as well. And, and then of course, when I started having a couple of lucid dreams, man, that just opened some whole new doorways of exploration, because now I was able to interact with the dream environment and essentially provide prompts or questions that I would get answers for, and I was able to change things. And as I moved through the lucid experience, I guess, I became aware of what I sort of could and couldn't do, and that changed over time. But just to bring it right back, just the dream experience itself, observing how that mirrored my physical awake life, and how my awake life was reflected in the dream world. So there was a correlative, if you will, a correlation between them, and learning about that and the value. But yeah, I mean, as far as I've had visitors, some of them have been a little bit alarming. Some of them have been very curious. But yeah, I think once you start wanting to get more involved in this, there's a grace period where you are, a lot of your experiences can be sort of, you'll be presented with shielded experiences. But what I found is, after exploring some other practices, protection, sleep hygiene, all these things factor in for, a high quality experience. And, even the thoughts that you take with you before you go to sleep. That's why it's so crucial to make peace with yourself before you go to sleep. So that's just a bit of a nutshell on, some of the what's been going on.
Oh, cool. And yeah, I know you guys have both had experiences with beings and things. So this question, and thank you for your question, Phytho. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. So anyone experience the Bahava state? Or stage. So I did actually Google this really quickly, because I didn't know the meaning of the word. Let me just bring this up so that I can share this with you guys for the audience as well. So the state of Bahava in Vahishism, I'm just butchering this, sorry, describes a spiritual state rich in deep emotions and devotion, cultural through Saharana. It represents a essential facet of bhakti, signifying the sincere emotional quality developed through spiritual practice. Additionally, Purana highlights the state of Bahava as pure and unaffected condition, conducive of attaining a higher state of wisdom. This concept underscores the importance of emotional engagement and purity in the pursuit of spiritual growth and understanding. So that was just on the Wisdom Library. But yeah, so in answer to that question, I actually have experienced with that, and it would be in what I would say is more, we talked about it in the Vedic show that I did on Mason Jupiter. So what I was experiencing was contact with these beautiful Vedic beings that were flying in a Vimana. So a Vimana is like a flying temple. And what I recall was not just seeing them, it was this beautiful open-hearted state of never-ending bliss. And more kind of like wanting to stay in that bliss, but realizing it wasn't my time to sort of stay in that bliss. So not a death state, but there was just this feeling of higher attainment of frequency and energy, and them coming in to bestow or to bring a message and energy. So it's not the first time I've experienced that side of things. Whether this is something that we want to work towards in terms of programming or setting an intention to meet with these kinds of beings. I've also had similar experiences in meeting what I would say is more ET or higher dimensional beings as well. But you just get swept up in this beautiful purity emotion that just feels like your heart's exploding and you're just getting all this wisdom kind of poured on you. Did you guys want to share if you've had an experience of this kind of state?
Sure, I'll quickly go. I guess from the point of view of being a hermeticist, I seek to understand, or categorize these experiences that I encounter as I move through my practice. And so I'm not very familiar with that word. I've just done a quick search on it, and I see it's related a lot to mood and feeling. And I would even hesitantly sort of add that it maybe hints at a type of rapturous experience. And one thing I've been aware of in my dream travels is that, you know, emotions can knock you out of the experience, especially if you get really excited in a lucid dream, right? So it's about keeping it stable. But on the flip side, once you stabilize it, you can actually meditate within the dream experience, and you can essentially fast track some of these stages. That's why we have books like, you know, Dream Yoga. You know, there's many Tibetan lamas that write about this. And so, you know, but yes, I've certainly had some pretty incredible sort of, you know, emotional states during dreams, quite a wide range of them. But I'm sorry, I would have to be more familiar with the term and the context to sort of speak any further. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. And I just want to welcome also some of the new viewers. Thank you for subscribing. And also remember to go check out Phil's and Greg's channels as well on YouTube. They have amazing content that they're also putting out. So how about you, Greg? Did that make sense to you, that harvesting?
Yeah, look, it does. I think that's what we're kind of, that's the experience that kind of really kept me going back for the astral. Well, generally it's an experience that you don't necessarily plan. Like I find with the astral experience that it's true not to be over emotional, but some just, like there are temples, as you say, these flying temples or just temples. I remember once going, just finding myself flying, and I knew I was astral. When I say astral, I mean loosely out of body, and you can be in all sorts of stages there. So not technically in the astral domains, but in what I call an out-of-body state. And I remember, this was particularly vivid. I remember I was kind of flying over a beautiful, it was like an estuary. It was like coming from the ocean. And then there were beautiful lotus leaves, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I thought, okay, this is interesting, like a lot of lotus leaves, unusual for the ocean. Then I noticed I flew around, there was this beautiful landing, and then there was this golden temple. Later on, when I kind of started Googling temples, it was very much a Hindu kind of temple, actually, in its style, but it was very ornate, golden. And I remember walking up to this, and I was in a very ecstatic state. These just beautiful states where you just feel, you know, utterly connected, and it can show itself in all sorts of traditions. Like when I've heard the Om, and like, as I said, I'm not a practicing Hindu or not a practicing Christian or Buddhist, but I've had all traditions being expressed to me, for like, in some way or another. And but this particular temple was so beautiful. I remember walking up to it, and it's a bit like, you know, Not Your Time. Like as I'm walking up the steps and about to go in, and the whole thing, of course, disintegrated. You know, it's like here I am, here I am, here I am. And even just random. I remember one particular experience that gave me a real feeling of a kind of ecstatic connection. I remember there was this French monk just chanting in front of me, like I'm in the void, and then all of a sudden, like this waiting room in the astral, and this guy just is chanting and in French, and it was kind of medieval French. I just knew it, and then I remember just when he looked up at me, and I just thought, okay, this guy can actually see me. So I'm in the astral. There's just one other person here. And there's this connection often that is not logical, not intellectual. And it's just this feeling, like we talk about downloads, or just the experience itself was just, that was the embodiment, just the chanting. I don't know what he was chanting. It doesn't matter what he was chanting, but the feeling that it gave you, you know. So I guess as you say, Sol, this feeling of like bliss, but you know it's not your time to stay there. Sometimes you want to stay there because it's so good.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like wanting to get back to it, you know, like how can I crawl back into that state?
Yeah, and it's often spontaneous. That often it'll just come when it comes, I feel. You know?
And I didn't know that about your dream with the golden building, because I've actually had one too. And when I Googled it in the morning, and this is going back maybe 10 years ago, so it was called a stupa, but it was that same sort of awe-inspired feeling with this golden stupa that I was just drawn to it. I didn't go through to it, but yeah, oh my gosh, it makes me want tickets to come and like hang out in your dreams. Like if I can book a ride on one of your dreams, guys. It sounds like so much fun. Is there a certain practice that you both utilize to set things up? Like, I know for me, you know, if I'm wanting to intend to have a certain experience in a dream, which if I'm wanting a deep sleep, I don't usually intend for things to happen in dreams. But I might set up with maybe taking some melatonin or some Blue Lotus, Vision Quest, sometimes a combination of like all three, and I'll set my intention, and I might even do like little, this is a bigger channeler crystal, but 2 channeler crystals, like little ones, one in each hand. And that sometimes with a crystal under the pillow of my head will also stimulate, you know, to go into that almost kind of hyperspace type feel for dreams. Is there any practices you guys will utilize maybe when you want answers from dreams, or if you just want to have a cool experience?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you know, I've experimented with a lot of ways to induce the experience itself and seek to enrich it and vivify it, if you will, to make it more vivid and stable. You know, and I found a set of practices in one book, and I can't remember the name of the chap, but he was a Buddhist who's quite well known for speaking about lucid dreams. And essentially, there was it was about stabilizing it, and then extending the duration, and then making it vivid. And there's with 3 practices there to sort of help construct or set and setting for, you know, best practices for best outcomes. And that was quite valuable. But, you know, outside of that, one of the best ways to do it is that, you know, you set the intention when you're on your way to sleep. Like, you might have your beads, and you might say, I'm going to dream tonight, or I will remember my dreams, or I remember my dreams. You know, and then of course, leaving your dream journal open. And so your subconscious goes, oh, yeah, okay, that's on. Okay, so you're setting all of these things into place to kind of build up an environment that's all like, oh, okay, it's all being set up for this purpose. Now, if I want to say get an answer, or I want a theme, or craft my dream rather than just say, give me a thing and tell me what's up, sometimes it's valuable and sometimes it's hard to determine value. But one approach, and I've already started writing this up in my dream crafting course, which will be coming out at some point in the year, but basically using tarot cards to essentially induce a theme of a dream. Like, you know, it's starting generally with the minor arcana because they're quite relatable. And in the Rider-Waite deck, there's lots of their pictures of people doing things. So you'll have a dream essentially, and this might happen over 2 or 3 nights, and you'll have a similar type of dream experience. There'll be, in each dream, there'll be like a dark-haired lady with a number of items which will reflect the card and the type of the experience. You know, it's really fun to do this, to bring in some, to give the dream poet, if you will, some parameters and language to help build an understanding bridge between your conscious and unconscious mind, so that you can sort of, because, you know, they're like a puzzle box. They're like riddles. When you get the gift of a dream, and then it's, you know, you try to unpack it to make sense. But yeah, I'd say that's probably it. I have tried crystals under the pillow, and I've tried, there are some herbs as well. But generally, if I want to, what was it? Mugwort.
Oh yeah,
you got to be,
that's a bit.
that you got to be careful with someone, because I did it wrong once, and I ended up having a very bad time. So, you know, do your research. But there are herbal ways of engaging these things. But yeah, I kind of like the vanilla approach of just like working with what I got, which is just setting intention. Like I said, though, getting up really early, doing the wake back to bed, where I get up and I walk around and I might have a stretch and do some concentration meditation, so that I don't wander off into unconscious sleep if I want to lucid dream. And then I'll go back to bed at maybe like 5 or something like that. And that period of the morning when the REM stage is already cranking, that seems to reap some pretty good fruit. So yeah.
Oh, cool. And yeah, you have to be careful with mugwort. Some of them are a little bit stronger than others, but it can be fun, as well as like Damiana. That's another good one. Even sage, you know, which some people will have in their gardens. But it is a lot to do with intention setting. I also find amethyst crystal is a great crystal to have as a cluster next to your bed. It helps you to remember your dreams. How about you, Greg?
Yeah, like the same as both of you, really. I sort of a bit the vanilla approach as Phil. I just kind of But I do find that, it's like you were showing me your crystals before. Like I do have an amethyst that someone gave me, a beautiful amethyst that it feels right to have near my head on my bedside pillow. But it's not something, it just feels right to have that there. I find, sometimes I'm in that kind of psychic frame, and then other times, as you say, like I'll just have a deep sleep. What I'll often do is I'll do the triggers during the day. Like for lucid dreams, I will do the triggers. I've mentioned this probably a lot on podcasts and stuff, but often the going to the bathroom I will use as a trigger, because for some reason I often wake up in dreams where I'm often going to the bathroom. So therefore it's either I'm just remembering those dreams because I have to go to the bathroom, or every night I go to the bathroom in a dream. I'm not sure what it is. But because often I will drink a fair bit of water before I go to bed at night, and I find that's good because I actually want to go to the bathroom at night. I want to get up and go and kind of reset, because when you come back, I find the mind's often a bit, all over the place. So just to bring in the mind is very good. So triggers like, I go to the bathroom during the day, I'll think to myself, what does it mean to be actually here? What is this bathroom? How does it work? Is this a logical scenario? Door opens normal, the whole thing works, taps. And then and actually what I've realized is I actually do that a lot during the day. And I find if people really want to have lucid dreams, I found like every hour or so, think, what does it mean to be actually in 3D? Like, how does it feel to be in what we call normal logical reality? Because that's one of my triggers. Then when you're in a dream, you will hang on. This isn't right. The window is upside down, or there's 3 lights. There should only be one. I know this room. So I find the trigger thing is just something that's ongoing at all times. And I think that any of us, probably we all do this. We're constantly gauging what does it mean to be in this reality. So, and then the other thing I'll do, if I really want a lucid experience at night, when I fall asleep on my back, and I will, I want to remember my dreams. I want to be conscious in them, and I will basically activate the third eye to fall asleep. So what I mean by that is I'll lie there, and I will just have my eyes a little bit, my actual eyes in their eye sockets pointed up slightly toward my brow. What that does is it takes me longer to fall asleep, which is the aim, which is a bit annoying. But then all of a sudden, so the mind starts to kind of almost fall asleep, but then you remember to keep, and the eyes, a little bit of tension in the brow region. And I find that all of a sudden things become very lucid. Like even before I've fallen asleep, my mind just gets very still, gets very, very, very still. And I often have a feeling of depth, like there's light in my forehead. So that the phosphenes behind the eyelids, if you like, attain a kind of depth. So I'm looking for some kind of light structure coming through there. So yeah, I just find activating the third eye, lying on the back symmetrically, thinking, okay, I'm going to fall asleep awake. Basically, I want to fall asleep having this view of the room around me. So I'm kind of aware of the room around me. So I'm quasi-conscious of my spatial situation while I'm falling asleep. That's a long-winded answer. There's a few things in that, but I guess that's what we do.
That works really well. It's a technique that we use in hypnotherapy as well to, sort of roll your eyes back or pop your eyes to a certain, higher level of the roof, and to get your eyes to be above. So I sometimes will use that, triggering myself to go into a hypnotic state, or put the binaural beats on too if I sort of want to get there a little bit faster. So one thing that they talk about that you're not to do in a dream state, and I just want to get your idea on this, there's one of those weird internet things out there. So I've heard that you're not supposed to eat food in a dream. Now, I've been eating food in my dreams lately, which is really bizarre, because I don't know if I've been conscious of that previous years. And I don't seem to have felt anything bad or ill effect or anything negative that's come from it. But the other thing that people talk about is that you're never supposed to ask what the time is in a dream. Have you guys heard or experienced these things?
I mean, I've certainly eaten things in dreams, and it's been fine. I guess, you depending on how conscious you are in the dream, like I said, I've experienced like, oh, that's very kind. Thank you, Discipline Freedom. Essentially, the more conscious you are in the dream, the more sort of data and the experience you can have. Like if you're like really tired and you end up dreaming and you're just kind of floating in and out, it's probably not gonna be a super rich experience that you remember as such. But the food, sometimes I remember it and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I can taste it and sometimes I don't. I haven't sort of actively sought it out. But and as far as what you were saying before, what was the other thing that you mentioned, Sol?
Oh, so there was eating in a dream. Oh, and
Yes.
sometimes it'll be food that we don't have in this reality. I forgot to mention. Sometimes I'm
Yes.
eating things we don't have here. But the other thing is, I don't know if it's a superstition or if it's like the astral time or dream lords, whatever you want to call them, whether it's drawing attention to yourself is what I've heard around asking the time. So you're not supposed to ask the time in the dream. It's almost like these beings will turn around and they're aware that you're awake or conscious within the dream state. That's just something I've heard floating around the internet.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, my understanding is that a dream is a sort of a personalized pocket of the astral. That's my take on it, my current conclusion. It's not, it is very astral. It's very thick compared, especially if you get into Qigong and you start floating yourself in a Qi ball, you get used to the feeling of the swimming sensation. And I find that's very similar to having out of body and dream experiences because it's the environment is thicker. That can be a trigger as well. But, as far as time goes, from a human point of view, if it is indeed in the astral, that's a timeless place. So they're going to be kind of looking at you going, oh, you must be from the physical perhaps. But I haven't really sorted out. I have had experiences where I've seen clocks and times, and I'm not sure how that translates to anything, but I'm not aware of that one. That's a curious one. Maybe I'll have to ask next time and see what happens, and I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, please report back. That'd be really interesting. And if you guys in the chat in our Soul Tribe, if you have experienced this, please pop it into the chat. Or if you guys have questions, if you can put them in all caps, and then we can get to your questions too. How about you, Greg? Have you had food or asked the time in your dream?
No, look, in dreams, I guess you do. I mean, a lucid dream, I wouldn't have been attracted to eating food in a lucid dream because you're not hungry. But in dreams, for sure, I've eaten food. And it's an interesting point because there's something weird about eating food in dreams. There's something weird about it. I've often felt at the time there's been some kind of negative experience. Well, actually, one dream I did have, I used to love honey. I used to love eating honey. And I had a series of honey dreams. And where I'm overdosing on honey. I've got this toast, beautiful toast, and I'm just putting so much honey. I'm eating it. Woke up and went, ugh. Had it twice in a row. I can't eat honey. I used to love it.
Wow. Even the spiritual metaphor behind that, honey and the vibration and the medicine.
Well, I think also this was a few years ago when I was living overseas, and I thought of I did go deliberately went off sugar, all sugars, and I realized, well, honey is actually, it's healthy. Yeah, it's sugar, and to eat it in such quantities as we do. Right, so I just went off maple syrup, went off honey. So I just went when I say any added sugars, I don't have. And so maybe at the time I was having too much of that, and maybe it's like when I got into Reiki, I couldn't drink coffee anymore. So maybe it's energetic. I'm not sure, but in a lucid dream, I wouldn't seek out food. One thing that's interesting, we should all try sometime. If anybody's got a thing on this, if you're in the astral, right? So for me, that's a state where you're fully conscious. It's more than a dream because it's more real than this, and a lucid dream is not as real as 3D actually. So you're in the astral. If you're in your house, for instance, and there is and there are certain things that remain the same. What I've tried is if you eat an apple in the astral, right? An apple that is in your house, you go there, take it. You can take the astral and you can eat it. Next day, it'll be rotten. You can actually eat. Yeah.
Wow.
That'd be a fun
That is
experiment. Yeah.
cool. Yeah, there you
That is
guys
very
go for
cool.
it at home. An in-home
Did it
experiment. That
once
is a try.
accidentally, did it once accidentally, and I thought, well, that couldn't be a coincidence. So it took the energy out of the apple. So that makes me think there's interesting ramifications to that. The apple's still there, whereas I had eaten it in the astral, but I'd taken the astral, I'd taken the essence of that apple out of it.
Wow, that is fascinating, Greg.
Mm.
Okay, that's a whole nother show.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
like,
no,
what
no,
else
it's
did we
different mind.
experience and work with in that level?
Could I
And
just
you know,
drop
there's
something quick? Sorry.
yeah, sure.
Sorry, thank you. I just wanted to say that, it's one thing to sort of find food, and it's another thing to accept food. And generally when, in certain practices and like hermetics, we generally won't accept food because it's almost like you could be signing a contract in a sense too. You're accepting an offering. And so, it's like I said, there's two different things there, accepting food can be considered sort of forming an agreement or taking something without knowing what the other end of the offer is. So I'll just share that, and just an all caution.
Yeah, that's good. And that's something we work with in crystal dreaming as well is, you don't accept amulets, other things, crystals and things like that. You also have to be careful of like receiving in dream state or astral state. Was there something else you wanted to add, Greg?
No, that's interesting what you're saying, Phil, about that. I think you're right. I feel that too. I feel there's some agreement. It's like, because I know with a bit of the shamanic stuff I've done, yeah, it's interesting. It's something that you're agreeing. There's some kind of contract, even in some small way. So interesting theme for sure, isn't it? Cool theme.
It is. And we've got our lovely friend Jake here. So Jake is saying, do you think we can visit an alternate physical multiverse in dreams or just the astral? So my partner and I actually experienced this. It was interesting. I gave him, I think it was maybe like a blue lotus tea, but just like to relax because it's also good for anti-anxiety, stress. And this was a couple of years ago. And it was funny because the effect took place more in the waking morning. So it was like a delayed kind of compounded effect. And he said he could close his eyes and he was seeing and experiencing this whole other dream reality. And he's like it's really there. He goes, I can close my eyes and just jump straight back in. And he could see me there in this other dream and this whole other life that we had with whole other different characters that were part of the dream. The cool thing with me being clairvoyant is I was able to close my eyes and I could sort of describe some of the characters in the dream because he was connecting with a multiverse aspect of the two of us. So yeah, this is definitely in my firsthand experience as well. I have dreamt where I've had other jobs, I've had different family, and I know that I'm experiencing a multiversion, a version of myself. So just as we talk about all the time, past, present, future, linear concept, this is the multiverse concept where we have the oversoul. This might be the Earth lifetime. This could be, whether it's a Pleiadian lifetime or a lifetime in another realm time or another dimension even, but we're connected. It's like these little strings that vibrate, and every now and then you might have a bleeding through from this reality that drips into this conscious world or this conscious state, or we travel into these places. That's my experience. How about you guys?
Yeah, I trying to sort of lay out a taxonomy, if you will, or a kind of a map of how, what is the astral, what constitutes it, what's its characteristics, properties, and attributes, and where does this idea of the multiverse sort of fit in, in that kind of map. And so, from and I keep referring back to this because it's just sort of worldview that helps me, is that from a hermetic point of view, everything's involved in the drop. It's the holographic model. And so I have certainly had experiences that are not the usual experience that hint at the idea that I'm in another place. It's got a very different feeling to it, because you can navigate the experience you're in based on what we might call the clairsentient input, sensory data, or the way that the environment feels and how you respond to it at the level of feeling. It's got a tangibility to it that helps to sort of separate it into sort of classifications and categories. But, you know, as far as the multiverse concept goes, you know, in my own personal experience, there have been key moments, you know, where I've been on a craft and I'm like, is this a dream or is this an actual kind of experience where I've been invited or pulled or something? And, you know, I don't like things happening against my will. I trust that my higher self is steering the ship when I'm in a less conscious state, so that, you know, I'm not being, you know, having my free will exploited as such when I'm in a less conscious state. But I tend to agree that there are many layers to explore, many strata on the journey, and just finding ways to sort of identify how they're different by identifying the contrasting environments and the way that the environment feels and the types of symbols you'll see. This is my best attempt at seeking to make sense of if I am in a different place to where I usually am.
Oh, okay, cool. And I can see Emma is saying the same thing. And what I always sort of will describe to my clients is when you're on board a craft or when you're having like an ET contact experience, a lot of the time it does feel dreamlike. And it's usually that they're contacting you on like a higher dimension. So it will feel very much more real than like a dream sense. There's like a more kind of like tangible or a feeling that you can't really shake. Whereas a lot of the time when we have a dream, we wake up and it fades into the distance. Whereas with the ET contact experience, my definition of it being a little bit different is it sort of sits and stays there and you can close your eyes and go back to it. So yeah, thank you for sharing your experience too, Emma. And how about you, Greg?
Yeah, well with the dreams, because yeah, the dreams often you have those repetitive dreams where you're going back to places, and you remember in the dream that those places you've been before, and you know you have them again and again and again, like these chapters. We're living other lives. It's kind of a bit weird, and then when you're falling into that dream state, I can often recognize those dream, you know, places, that vibe, as you say, different vibe, and it's like there's another lifetime going on. It's kind of these weird little snippets. So I think that, as you're saying before, the whole notion of time, that's what I like about even in 3D, even in this reality we're in now, we're lugging the past. We have expectation of the future. It seems to be the nature of a temporal reality, whereas that's what probably distinguishes between all this dream and 3D experience and what I call the astral experience, where there is no time, where you're absolutely in the now, because you're utterly focused on that present moment. That's probably why it's so ecstatic, because there is no time. You're aware that you're out of time. So everything is anything you wish to manifest is immediate in the astral. So dreams and this, I think dreams and this reality are more related. Even these other dimensional dreams, or these other what did you say before, these multiverses, whereas I put the astral experience where the consciousness is totally 100% there and you're out of a temporal state, that I put in another football field.
Yeah.
You know, but it is curious how we lug around. I've also found with dreams, if you can't remember a dream, you're waking up, you know you've had some bizarre dream that you want to get back into, or you've woken up and you want to get back into your physical position that you were having when you were having that dream. So if you're lying on one particular side, or I find to move into that particular physical position, that I can often fall back into that dream that I was having.
That's a good tip. I find the same. And even if I sort of visualize the last little snippet of the dream, it will take me back into it. Or if I sort of see myself like walking back into that scene, almost like an actor on a stage. So I think with Paris Anne's question as well, do dreams take you back to a former life? I recall riding in a carriage and seeing trees pass by. So as we were saying before, with that connected consciousness and being able to sort of tap in. So I would say that's sort of included in the last question that we asked. So definitely you can go back into other past life realities and things too. And I can see Emma is also saying, my dreams are really another arrangement of multiple realities. I have no idea where I go next, which is so interesting. And we have our friend Ben here. Hey, Ben, hope you and your family are doing well. And I can see Lorianne is saying, I have had telepathic contact before after an intense prayer meditation. Freaks me out every time. And I think with this kind of thing, it's to soften ourselves. And this is what's happening with the ET world, which maybe we'll do another show on the ET contact side of things too, because a lot of us are being prepared, whether it's through the dream experiences and contact softly in this way. I do know some people that I guess are harder to reach in that aspect, and they've had the full-blown show up in the physical contact experience. So they do gently try and approach more from the dream aspect first. And I know we're coming to the top of the hour, but I think we had another question. We might just have time for this one. So Emma said, I had an odd dream experience last night. I was looking through my iris and then felt a negative energy and zipped back so fast that my body was frozen, felt icky. Did you guys want to maybe tap into what that might be?
Yeah, so, when you're occupying, when you're sort of not encumbered or carrying the burden, if you will, of your physical body, you sort of release all the physical sensory inputs. And so, when you're in the dream environment, you're accessing another layer of data. And so telepathic communication, it's more, rather than words, I found it's more like you receive a packet of understanding. But just to talk about that one that, hang on, where was it? When we're looking through our eyes in the dream environment, and if you're feeling your eyes, that's a question I'd ask you, Emma. Did you actually feel your eyes? And I think too that like the astral, from a Hermetic point of view, is the realm of sensation form, and so you will tend to interpret a lot through the feeling body. Of how you navigate it, like I'm going this way. Ugh, I don't like the way that feels, but it's probably going to be, hyper exaggerated in some cases, because like I said, all your physical sensory inputs are switched off. You're occupying the next sort of levels up of your experience, the astral body, mental body, and so forth. So, as far as what it might mean, it's probably need more context, but it serves you well to become aware of, like, I don't know why, but going this way makes me feel kind of gross. So just go that way. So, yeah.
That's a great answer. How about you, Greg?
Yeah, and it goes back to what we talked about earlier on about when you mentioned feeling good, like when you fall asleep, sleep hygiene. Remember we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, that notion of when you're falling asleep to kind of fall into a beautiful state. So to be kind of consciously feeling really good when you fall asleep. Like I know one nice technique is I like to to lie there, as I said, on my back, but I like to think of myself, you can exchange the word cosmos for God or universe, whatever you like, but I remember thinking, if I could fall asleep thinking that I am the cosmos or I am God, that feels really good. So I tell myself that I use the word God because I was brought up a Catholic and there was a negative connotation with that word. So I like to get rid of the negative connotation. So now I love that word because it just means the all. But I think to myself, okay, my left arm is the arm of God. And therefore I am that. And so as I'm falling asleep, when my logical mind starts to peter out, I could really start to feel that I was the cosmos, or I am God, or whatever. Whereas in the beginning, my logical mind would be saying, don't be silly, Greg, you're not God. So as you fall asleep, you become less logical. If you can take some logical intention to that you are the cosmos, then as you fall into that illogical state of, dream state or whatever, which is far more real, you have that chance of kind of phasing into something that's very astral or lucid dream-like. So I found just to, that what we call the sleep hygiene, where you can get, like sort of tap away any stuff that's been occupying you and just start to feel very connected to everything when you fall asleep. I find that's a good way to get rid of the those icky kind of vibe-ish things.
That's really good advice. And I know for me, sometimes it's hard to shake off to like physically get up, maybe go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, do something kind of grounding, and then I feel protected and safe again. Now, I did see another question, but we're going to actually save this one for next week. This is Kathy's one. So Kathy was saying, has anyone had reoccurring dreams since childhood? So we're actually going to be talking about that next week. So you guys will have to tune in for next week to find out a little bit more about that. But yeah, a few of us have had experiences around that. So it's a bit more of a broader topic, which will be great to go into. So we are at around the top of our hour. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that showed up for our first Awakening Insider show today. It's been so lovely to hang out with all of you guys in this space. And we'd love to hear your examples of dreams next week, if this has maybe changed your dreams a little bit. And just a reminder that we do have my beautiful potions for sale if you want a little bit of dream assistance or kind of a way to step into the dream realm or meditation. That would be this one here, the Vision Quest. And I just want to say thank you to our beautiful community as well for the reviews that you guys have left. You are also poetic in the words in describing your experiences with the potions. And don't forget that you can also book a session and save 10% off a reading with me over on masonjupiter.com. Just use the word Jupiter for the 10% off. And Phil has his sessions available over on his Substack. So I've popped them up in the chat and on the screen a couple of times. And we also have Greg. Oh, Greg, I meant to ask you as well. Do you have a workshop coming up?
Not as such, no. I've got my online one there, but I'll have one coming up soon in Brisbane. I might even do an online workshop as well over Zoom, because I used to do them combined. Had all sorts of technical hiccups when you've got an online audience and a physical audience, as you can imagine. So I'm going to separate them from now on.
Yeah.
But very
that'll be
soon
wonderful.
I want to get
and
them
you
back
have
up.
your services as well that people can come and book.
That's right. And there's also the book online thing you've got there. People can see. I've got quite a few little things people can book on. But yeah, I'll get physical ones and online Astral workshops up very soon.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone will be looking forward to that. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out today. It's been a lot of fun. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week, where we're going to be talking more about dreams. And yeah, please bring your comments, maybe keep a dream journal for this week as well.
Good idea. Yeah, good idea.
All right. Thank you, everyone. See you next week. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. See ya.